If you're looking for a new ESL lesson, why not try one about social media? My students always love this one and I always look forward to teaching it as well. So let me walk you through step by step this entire lesson. You can copy and paste for your students. My name is Megan. I have been an ESL teacher for over 10 years. I'm getting my PhD in education and I am so passionate about helping teachers find and create lessons that are actually useful and actually practical for their students, as well as being lots of fun. So today, let's talk about some ideas for a social media ESL lesson. First, we need to start with a warm-up. I want my students to be speaking immediately once the class starts. I like to ask 3 questions for the warm-up, but if you're short on time, you could definitely lower these. I throw all 3 questions on the board at the same time. Number 1, how many hours do you spend on your phone every day? Number 2, how many hours do you spend on social media every day? And number 3, what are your 3 most used apps? Usually, I don't even have time to finish reading those three questions, and the students are already turning to their partner and they're already psyched to answer these questions. They love these warm-up questions and it always starts the class off on such a high note. A lot of times students will just guess about their screen time, but a lot of them will actually pull out their phone and actually search their screen time. They actually can see the 3 most used apps. It's such an easy, accessible way to start. Every student, regardless of their English ability, will be able to answer these questions. The better their English level, the more they'll be able to expound upon them as well. And spoiler, if students know how many hours they spend on their phones, that will help us later on in one of our speaking exercises. After the warm-up, I like to lead into teaching. So any vocabulary that we need to learn or any of the textbook exercises that you need to do. This is going to vary depending on your school and your textbook and the type of class you have. If it's a listening class, maybe you're listening to some episodes. If it's a writing class, maybe you're writing. If you're a reading class, etc. You know the drill. Look through your textbook, find the exercises that your students need to complete before we move on to the speaking exercises. I'm going to give you 4 examples of speaking exercises. You can pick and choose the ones that you need or do all 4. To be honest, my classes are 90 minutes long and I probably don't have time to do all 4, but pick and choose whatever you need to. The first activity is how to reduce your screen time. So remind students of the activity we did at the beginning of class. You know, we all spend probably more time than we should on our phones. So what are some ways we can reduce that screen time? Have students work with a partner and create a few ideas. If you really want to challenge them, give them a number. They have to write down 5 ideas or they have to write down 10 ideas. I generally like to do 10 because it's pretty easy to think of a variety of ideas. And I find that giving them a number like 10 pushes them to keep going past the obvious ones like hang out with your friends or go outside, and you will be surprised how creative students can get with this. It's fascinating and tons of fun to see them kind of let loose a little bit and release their creativity because let me tell you, they're creative. I've had students say that you should just sleep all day because then your screen time will be much less. Get a boyfriend and make out with your boyfriend because then you won't be thinking about your phone. Tons of creative ideas. As long as they're speaking in English, go. Have fun, communicate in English, that's our goal. Discussion number 2 is a little bit more serious, and this is about comparison culture online. I usually like to show a couple of pictures of this. So I'll put on the PowerPoint a picture of someone who, just bought a new car, or someone who looks drop dead gorgeous, someone who's wearing all the coolest clothes, the coolest fashion, they're rocking a Cartier bracelet and all of these things. And I ask them, how do you feel? When you're scrolling online and you see someone and you think, oh, she's so beautiful. I wish I looked that beautiful. And you keep scrolling. You're like, oh, are you kidding me? He got an A on that exam. I studied really hard and I barely got a B. I wish I were as smart as he is. Keep scrolling. Are you kidding me? Her boyfriend got her flowers again just for no reason. Boy, I wish I had a boyfriend like that. Keep scrolling. As we see more on social media, it's really easy for us to compare what we see to our own lives. how good is that for our mental health? Usually this doesn't take much explanation. Students get what I'm talking about immediately. So then I lead them to 2 discussion questions. Number 1, do you often compare yourself to the pictures and videos that you see online? And number 2, what are some things we can do to kind of stop ourselves from constantly making comparisons and feeling badly about ourselves because of what we saw online? Then I let my students go into a discussion. Don't worry if students don't immediately turn to each other and immediately start firing off ideas. For the warm-up and for the last speaking exercise, they generally jump in pretty quickly, but this one is a little bit deeper. It requires a little bit more thought about, what does make me feel less than, and how can we combat those feelings and work to protect our mental health as we're constantly seeing the highlight reel of everybody else online. If you want to take this a step further, you could also add a discussion question to this about filters. Maybe you could show a picture of someone with and without a filter, or someone like before and after plastic surgery, and talk about how this overly filtered, overly photoshopped perception really does affect our mental health. And maybe another question you can add is, should we use filters online? Is this a good thing, or should we stop using them, or should we even make them illegal? Speaking activity number 3 is a little bit special, but it's so fun. I always love to do it. And it's the idea of how emojis are different in different countries. Now, this will vary depending on the country that you're in, or you can search some of this information online. But I like to do a little bit of a back and forth activity between the students and myself. So I'll show an emoji on the PowerPoint, and I'll ask the students what it means. For example, I'll show a picture of just, a happy smiling emoji, and I'll ask them what it means. Now, for older generations, it does just mean smile, happy. For younger generations, though, that's a fake smile. That doesn't actually mean happy. I'll show them a picture of the crying, laughing face, but then also the skull face, because different generations have different perceptions of those as well. Maybe there are some differences in the meanings of emojis in different areas of the world. For example, I live in China, and this emoji of the cute little face eating a watermelon means it's time for gossip. It has nothing to do with eating watermelon. If you see this emoji, you know somebody is about to gossip. But in America, I feel like it's more likely that we would choose something like this, something like tea, the idea of spill the tea. And I tell them, if you send this picture of a dude eating a watermelon to an American, we're just gonna assume you're talking about eating watermelon or eating delicious food. And so if you're in a classroom that has a variety of students from a variety of countries, this could actually be a really interesting conversation starter. In your country, what does this emoji mean? In our country, it means this. And if you don't have that variety, for example, it's just me as an American and all of my students are Chinese, then you can do a little bit of this back and forth between the teacher and students. If you have a variety of cultures in the same classroom though, why not have them go into groups and kind of discuss the differences? It's really fun, and I also really like how perfectly it mirrors real life situations. This would be a real life conversation that you're having with someone. It's not an official debate or prompt being given by a teacher. For example, how can we stop comparison culture? That's a prompt that we're often going to see and hear in the classroom. But something just like, hey, what does this emoji mean in your country, is something that could be more of a daily conversation in a real life situation. The last speaking exercise, number 4, can honestly take up so much time if you wanted to. And that is to explain social media to another person. Now, why are we doing this? What am I talking about? For my students, they're Chinese. And in China, we have an app called WeChat that is not usually used in America. In America, we have other forms of social media. We have Instagram, we have Snapchat, we have Facebook. And so I tell students that they need to imagine that they're talking to an American who's never used WeChat before. They've downloaded it for the first time, but they don't know how the app works. So you need to explain to the American how to use WeChat. Now, if this example doesn't really fit, maybe your country uses the same things as an English-speaking country. Maybe your country also uses Instagram or Facebook. Then I like to tell the students to imagine they're explaining it to their grandma. Their grandma has just downloaded Instagram. She's never used it before. She doesn't know how it works. How do you explain it to someone? Now, why are we doing this? Of course, we want students to practice their English, but I find that so many textbooks don't include these words that we use on a daily basis in the modern world. Words like delete, words like download, words like click. They're just not often in textbooks, but we use them constantly, especially if you're in a business setting. We will say something like click here, download this program. Even in our daily life, we will like a photo online, or we will leave a comment, or we will download a picture. These are things that we use in our daily life, yet are often missing from textbooks. So what I tell students is we are going to discover some new words together. Obviously, if you're having them like open up these apps, they're going to be using their phones, right? They're going to be opening up Instagram and showing them where to click and how to set something up. So I also tell students that if you run into a roadblock and you're not sure how to say something, use your dictionary and search it online as well, because a lot of these words are just not included in textbooks today. Like I said, this could be a 5-minute activity or 30-minute activity because there is just so much. During this time, I also like to walk around the room and kind of help students out as I see they're struggling with the word delete, or they're struggling with the word forward. There really is so much you can discover inside explaining an app to somebody. You know, you tell them that you need to download the app, then you need to register, then you need to log in, then you need to choose a profile picture, then you need to upload that picture, then you need to make your first post, you need to post a picture. Here we're seeing that the word post is a noun and it's also a verb. You can like the picture, you can comment on the picture, you can leave a comment on the picture. You can send a message, you can send a text, you can recall a message, you can forward a message. Honestly, the options are endless. And if you are going to choose this activity, then just make sure in your vocabulary section, you have some of the vocabulary that they're going to need. Words like upload or profile picture or click or delete. At the beginning, usually my students feel like, this is so easy. I know how WeChat works. I know how Instagram works. But a minute or two into it, they're like, wait, how do you say that? Wait, how do you say that? Wait, how do you say that? And it's really fun to see them take ownership of their learning and discover what they don't know and discover as well what they do know. And they always find it really interesting. They're always laughing and kind of giggling and smiling by the end of the activity because it sounds so simple, but it genuinely is a challenge. And they also feel satisfied knowing that they're learning words that they could use on a daily basis. The last thing we need to talk about is homework, and I have 3 ideas for homework exercises. Number 1 is to ask students to try to reduce their screen time throughout the next week. Now, we at the beginning of class had an exercise where we talked about how we could reduce their screen time. And in the warm-up, students shared how much time they spent on their phone or on social media each week. Keep that number in mind and try to reduce it. If they want, they can even look through the data for this. And then I just ask students to either keep a journal. So every day, write down how many hours you spent and even give a couple of comments. You know, which apps did you use the most? How did you feel as you start to reduce your screen time? Or you could have students just give a summary at the end of the week. You know, write 5 or 10 sentences at the end of the week about how you felt. Was it very difficult to reduce your screen time? Did you feel less anxious? Did you feel more present? Did you have more fun experiences as you tried something different rather than just scrolling on your phone? This is a really fun and accessible homework assignment. And also, you know what? it's good to be on your phone a little bit less. So you could have them write a diary or just have a summary at the end of the week. The second homework assignment is a question, and that's just, what do you think social media will look like in 10 years? And just have them imagine. Have them write 5 or 10 sentences describing what they think apps will be like. Will we have more filters? Will we have fewer filters? What style of videos are going to be more popular in the future compared to right now? Now, these are very difficult questions, but maybe your students will just answer using simpler vocabulary words. You know, maybe they say that in the future, they don't think we will have so many social media apps. We'll just have one, and all the other ones will go by the wayside. That's a little bit easier to communicate. Maybe some students will say, I think we'll be able to smell things or touch things. If we're shopping online, we can actually feel the fabric through social media. I've had students give a variety of answers for this. Again, the main point is them having an idea and being able to express it in English. And the third social media homework activity is one of my favorites. This is just, I tell students to go on social media, find a video in English and write down 5 vocabulary words that you learned from it. A lot of my students spend most of their time consuming Chinese social media. And you know, if you just start following 1 or 2 English speaking content creators, think of how much more exposure you're going to have in a day to English without even trying. Once you've followed them, once you've added them, the videos will come to you. The algorithm will feed you these videos, and that's bringing English into your daily life a little bit more. That's always my goal. Learning English is a marathon, not a sprint. I don't want them to think of English as something they only study when they're in class with me. I want them to constantly be pulling English into their daily life. So telling them to go online, find some videos in English, write down vocabulary words that they learned from it, can give them an introduction to this idea that they can be learning constantly, even when they're not in class. And you know what? It's not that hard. It's not that hard to watch a video that pops up online and just learn a word or 2 from it when you're in your downtime and when you're in your leisure time. So that is just one of my social media lessons. I have more because I've been teaching for a long time. I've taught a lot of lessons about social media. If you're interested in this video, you might like one of my others about inventions and technology, or another one of my lessons about AI and robots. In the future, I'll also be making more social media videos too about lesson plans. So if you'd like to follow, you can see all of those other ones. Check out the other lesson plans on my channel. You can also check out atlasteachingesl for more resources. We've got a lot going on. And you can check back here for weekly videos as well. I hope you have as much fun with your students with this social media lesson as I do with mine, and I will see you next time.